Hello, readers, and welcome to this edition of Mirabelle's Musings. I am your host, Mrs. Mirabelle, and today I'm going to be doing 3 book talks for you, and they are going to be for 3 titles that you will find on this year's Battle of the Book list. So let's go ahead and look at those now. Here are our 3 titles that I'm going to be doing those talks for, and they are Black Brother by Jewel Parker Rhodes, The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga, and The First Rule of Punk by Celia C. Perez. And you all know that there is no edition of Mirabelle's Musings that does not have burning questions. So here are the 3 burning questions I have come up with, one for each book. Let's go ahead and get right into those. So this first burning question is going to be for Black Brother, and that is, you shouldn't have to prove yourself, but should you want to? So I want you to be thinking about that. Should you prove yourself to people? Should you want to prove yourself to people? Our burning question for The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga is, are you responsible for someone else's actions? Right? So I want you to be thinking about that. Like, do you hold responsibility for things other people have done? And our final one for The First Rule of Punk is going to be, why does it seem hard at times to be true to yourself? Right? Everyone tells you stand out, be unique, but sometimes that's really hard. And I want you to be thinking about, why does that seem so hard? So here are the 3 titles that we're going to cover today. So hang tight and let's get right into those book talks. Hey, thank you so much. It was really awesome. Yeah, I loved it. It was great. Oh, hey readers, how are you guys doing? I just got back from my very first fencing lesson, and let me tell you, it was such hard work. I had no idea how physically demanding that sport was. And you may be wondering, why am I telling you about fencing? Well, the first title that I'm going to bring to you in Mirabelle's Musings is going to be about fencing and siblings and school. So if you'll give me just 1 second, I'm going to go ahead and freshen up and I will be right back. Hey readers, thanks for giving me a second to towel off and get some water. I went ahead and put my book talk earrings on, so you know I'm ready to go. So the first title that I'm going to bring to you in this edition of Mirabelle's Musings has a burning question, and that burning question is, you shouldn't have to prove yourself, but should you want to? So I want you to be thinking about that throughout the book talk that I'm going to give today. So the first title that I'm going to be bringing to you is Black Brother by Jewel Parker Rhodes, which is right here behind me. This book is realistic fiction, and it follows the story of 2 biracial brothers, Trey, who presents as white, and Dante, who presents as African American. And presents means that they look more of the one race than the other. Okay, so Trey looks more white and Dante looks more African American. And the brothers attend a predominantly white private school where Dante is the easy target for bullies and is often blamed for things he didn't do just because of the color of his skin. Dante is given the nickname Black Brother by a group of boys at the school led by a white classmate named Alan. And Alan does everything he can to make the days at this school for Dante miserable. One particular incident involving Alan leads to Dante's arrest and his suspension from school. And the only way that he knows to get back at Alan is to beat him at his own game, and that's fencing. He dreams of learning the sport and joining the school's team, the one where Alan happens to be captain, and he's never fenced before. But as luck would have it, he meets a former Olympic fencer who gives him all the information he needs. He teaches him, and this allows him not only to learn fencing, but he gets to strengthen his bond with his brother, and he begins to learn a little bit more about himself and the man he hopes to become someday. Black Brother by Jewel Parker Rhodes is a coming-of-age story about identity and what truly matters in life. It's also a title on this year's Battle of the Books list. Interested in checking it out? You can find it right here in our library. Hey readers, and welcome to our second book talk in this series. We are going to be discussing The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga, which is right behind me, and we're going to start with our burning question. So if you remember, our burning question for this title is, are you responsible for someone else's actions? So I want you to be thinking about that today. Okay, so again, our title for this book talk is going to be The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga. This title does come with a trigger warning, so I'm going to give you some information to think about. A school shooting has taken place in the past and is used as a catalyst to drive the plot of the story. It doesn't happen within the pages of the story. It is talked about, and it does affect our two main characters and their families. So it is a little bit of a trigger warning. Some sensitive stuff is going to be talked about in the book, okay? So our title here is a realistic fiction story about two middle school girls who used to be the best of friends until a tragic event pushed them apart. Cora and Quinn did everything together. They grew up together, they had sleepovers, and they told each other everything. That is, until the unspeakable happened. One autumn day, Quinn's brother walked into his school and killed 3 people before turning the gun on himself. One of those people was Cora's sister, Mabel. And remember, that happens not in the story, but outside the story. Okay. And since then, the girls have not spoken to each other and have both dealt with their grief in different ways. That is until one day when Cora notices a box, just an ordinary box, next to her front door. The box is from Quinn, and it takes Cora a really long time to bring herself to open it. But once she does, it sets the girls on a path that includes finding a wormhole and traveling back in time. Quinn and Cora are convinced that if they could just travel back to that fateful morning, that they would be able to prevent this tragedy from happening. Okay, so they have this idea that if they time travel, they can fix everything. And as the two work towards locating a wormhole and saving their siblings, they learn that the magic of their friendship may be what they need to save themselves. So this title is told in alternating 12-year-old voices, Quinn's and Cora's. So every other chapter is Quinn's and the other chapters are from Cora's perspective. And the readers get to see how both girls deal with the tragedy of losing a sibling and how they navigate repairing their friendship. When Cora decides to finally open Quinn's box, right, ordinary box, she sets in motion a journey that not only sees the girls working together again, but one may that provide a path for healing for both of them, and that leads them back to their friendship. So The Shape of Thunder, which is right here, again, by Jasmine Warga, is on this year's Battle of the Books list and is one story that will stay with you long after you have finished reading it. Interested in checking it out? You can find it in your library. Hello, readers, and welcome to our third book talk of this edition of Mirabelle's Musings. Our burning question for this novel is going to be, why does it seem so hard to be true to yourself? So I want you to be thinking about that as we go along, but I do have some other questions, and here they are. Do you have any grown-ups in your life that ever tell you they wish you were more into what they liked or more like someone else you know? And if so, you have something in common with our main character in The First Rule of Punk by Celia C. Perez. In our third realistic fiction story, we encounter Melu, which is short for Maria Luisa, who has recently moved to Chicago with her professor mom, leaving her dad over 1,000 miles away in Florida. This move is particularly hard for Melu because she feels like she has more in common with her dad than her mom, who seems to pressure Melu to be something she just isn't. Before her move, Melu's dad tells her to remember the first rule of punk: be yourself. But she is finding that pretty difficult on her first day at her new school. She manages to disappoint her mom with her chosen appearance, has a run-in with the school's most popular girl, and violates the school's dress code all before the end of first period. And that would be a lot, I think, for anybody to handle. Melu loves punk rock music and making zines about all the things in her life. And if you're like, what is a zine? I'm going to show you. A zine is kind of like a little booklet that you can make from a single sheet of paper. And the author does a really cool thing in the story. She gives us directions. So in the back, we have directions for making our own zine, but also throughout the story, we get to see the different zines that Mei-Lu has made. And I'm going to show you the beginning of one right here. And that says, "There is no place like home." She makes a zine out of paper and cut out letters from magazines and pictures. And that one she makes to convince her mom to stay in Florida. But spoiler alert, that doesn't happen, and they go ahead and move to Chicago anyway. But her mom, like I said, she doesn't feel like she has a lot in common with her, and her mom wants her to be more senorita. But Mei-Lu just wants to be herself. And when she meets Mrs. Hidalgo, which is the local coffee shop owner, Mei-Lu starts to feel better about living in a new city. And when she gets an idea to start a band to protest her school's censorship for the upcoming fall fiesta, Mei-Lu finally finds her people, a group of like-minded peers who help her realize that the real her is more than enough. Together, they make a stand for everyone's right to express themselves. The first rule of punk features themes of finding your place in the world, forming friendships, and being true to yourself. It's also on this year's Battle of the Books list. Interested in checking it out? You can find The First Rule of Punk by Celia C. Perez right here in our library. Okay, readers, so you just heard me book talk 3 spectacular books that you will find on this year's Battle of the Book list. And they are Black Brother by Jewel Parker Rhodes, The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga, and The First Rule of Punk by Celia C. Perez. Did you hear any titles that you are super interested in checking out? Well, you're in luck. We have copies of all 3 of these books, plus all of the other titles on this year's Battle of the Books list right here in our library. So if you want to come down and see me to check those out, that would be great. If you have answers to those burning questions that I asked for each of the 3 titles and you want to share them with me, I am all ears. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, if you have any questions, come and find me.